What's going on, everyone? Happy St. Patrick's Day. About to drop a bomb on the WWE hobby because right now we have our first look at 2022 Select Football, which means we also have our first look at what it could potentially be for 2023 Select WWE. Last year's Select was an absolutely amazing product, and no joke, might be one of the best WWE products ever released. They have a lot to live up to this year. And I think the designs that we're seeing in this preview are sort of hinting at a really big year for Select. What is going to happen likely is we will have this preview for football, then we will have the UFC preview, and then we will have the WWE preview probably pretty quickly here. With 2023 Prizm about to release at the week of WrestleMania or the couple of weeks after WrestleMania, Select is likely a couple of weeks into the next month. So if we look at Select coming out after Revolution last year, it went Prizm in the beginning of April, then it was Revolution end of April, beginning of May, and then Select right after that. So there could be some previews rapid fire here coming in the next couple of weeks. And I would expect that this is going to be one of the ones that a lot of people are looking forward to. So let's take a look at the way that the football product is configured, and we can kind of get an idea of how this is going to translate to WWE. So let's start with the new combined bottom tier level design. Last year, there were 4 designs in football. This year, there are 3. So you had last year 4 individual levels that translated to WWE almost directly. You had in WWE Concourse, then you had Mezzanine, then you had Premier, and then you had Ringside. Here, they look to be combining the Concourse and Mezzanine together. So I'm curious what this means for this unbelievable retail release that we had last year. So if they're going to combine Mezzanine and Concourse to be the new what we call suite level, I'm curious how that sort of translates because Mezzanine was a retail only parallel last year. And if you look back into the way Select is configured, these base variations are what drives the value for the set. Like there are packs that you can rip where you'll have 3 different types of cards all throughout the entire product. And that's what made these packs so much fun to open. So to see that they've decided to combine the 2 bottom levels into one, I'm curious how that's going to play out. Now, it could mean that for football, we're going to have a completely different sell sheet for everything for retail, and there may actually be a couple of extra base levels. Usually, Panini doesn't go down; they go up. So I'm curious again if all of this just means that there's going to be a couple of select pieces of information that we haven't received. But for now, let's just focus on kind of what we're seeing here. So if the suite level is the bottom of the tier sort of tier list, this design kind of looks like a combination of field level, which has those swooping lines, and the square-ish type of presentation that you would normally see in Mezzanine. So it's kind of that amalgamation of those designs, and it doesn't look bad. It's kind of busy, but I think for a WWE set, if we get something that looks just like this, that could be pretty awesome. Curious to see also how this factors into different colored and the bases, because if we have the color variations change those square things in the background, like that could be really interesting to see. If it just changes the outside border, maybe it's less successful, but these are the types of things that I think are really fun to speculate on. And this is why seeing this preview right now is such an awesome sort of way to sort of whet our appetites. All right, let's move on to the premier level, which is the second. I actually like this design a lot. I don't think it's as clean as it was last year because I think Premier was kind of the forgotten stepchild of the Select set last year, and it was not something that I think a lot of collectors was gravitating towards. I think this more circular, kind of snake-like a presentation, I have really no other way to put it, is much better. It's kind of in line with what we saw a couple of years ago for Select basketball and football. But the design itself is really interesting to see because it's this bigger border that's sort of closing in on the photo. And if you look at Premier last year, it was very angular and sort of built around those a larger border as well. So I think of all three, this one kind of looks like it's the most changed out of all of them. If you expect that the bottom levels are two combined ones, it's new. Um, this one is very different. It's not as angular. It's much more sort of rounded. So I think this one is also probably my least favorite of all of them, but it's I think Premiere last year as a whole was my least favorite. So it kind of fits in that mold. But this is the type of stuff where when they translate it set to set, things tend to change a little bit. So maybe we get a little bit of a different variation as it's translated to WWE. Okay, let's finish up with the field level base cards, which are the primary tier that everybody tends to collect. It's the top level. And this is where I thought there was a mistake in the sell sheet because this design looks very similar to what we would normally see on like a concourse level. And the suite level design is what we would normally see for something on a field level. So, field level on wrestling is ringside, and the ringside tier last year had those awesome photos, swooping lines, great design, fit so much better into all of the different parallels. It was tremendous, and a lot of collectors gravitated towards that parallel because of the way that it looked and because of the photos that were used. I don't expect anything different this year. And here is an interesting thing as well. This is a horizontally oriented card. I think for most of the wrestling ones we saw, it was all up and down vertical. So either something is being previewed here for football that is not going to be used in WWE, or we're going to start to see more horizontal cards being used across the WWE landscape. So this is a really cool sort of approach. I think it opens up a lot more space for the photo, and I really like the way that this looks as you translate it across the parallels, as expected for a field level / ringside design. So if we're looking at this from the three base levels, this is probably my favorite and the strongest. It's very clean, it looks great, but it's not the normal sort of swooping approach that we would expect. That's more used on the suite level. So maybe there's some sort of change there that's about to take place. All right, let's talk about some of the autograph memorabilia, which this year in football are horizontal. In wrestling last year, they were vertical. So, as we're seeing here, there are a lot of different angular changes that we're seeing to this, less of kind of the circular swooping approach that we took for last year's select. So, this looks to be modeled more of like an autograph relic version of the premier cards that we're seeing. But I've seen a horizontal approach for select used before to vast success. And I hope that as we get going, these types of cards become more and more frequent. I like the horizontal auto relics a lot better than the vertical because if you go further down in the preview and further into the more uh, important pieces of the select preview for football, you do have a vertical jumbo patch autograph, which hasn't been a thing for WWE. So this might be one of the things that they sort of move away from. But we do see some silhouetted relics cut out from the angular design, and it looks really, really good. So I think overall, as we're looking at the autograph relic content, like those are cards that drove this product. Those black WWE logo 101s from last year were some of the most widely chased in the entire sort of run of the year for Panini. So I'm curious again if we're going to see our first jumbo patch autographs. As it stands right now, I would say probably not, but I hope they do. These cards look great. Additionally, they are vertical, so maybe we do see a reduced swatch window and a larger photo translated more for the WWE side of it. All right, let's move on to the inserts here, which I think we'll see some of them transfer over. We did get our first look at the Phenomenon design, which last year we did get in Select, so I assume we're going to have that again. There's also a new insert called Visionary, and then another one that's called Starcade. Now, it's funny that it's called Starcade because there actually is a Starcade pay per view that's famous across the Southern territories and WCW at some points. So that would be a really interesting insert to sort of change the name to be more focused on the Starcade pay-per-view, but I don't think the event-based card is going to translate here. It's too bad because I think it's really cool that it's like this arcade version of it. But if you went back and changed some of the elements to make that Starcade specific, I think that would be an absolutely amazing insert set. The Visionary set seems made for Seth Rollins, as we've seen, but from a design perspective, it looks absolutely tremendous. I hate the giant word across the middle of it, and hopefully that changes. But from a parallel perspective, this will look really good with all of the colors. So as we're looking at some of these cards, like the inserts for Select drove a lot of like fun chases because they had parallels associated with them. But I think overall, the inserts really aren't the focus. It's usually the autographs and the base cards, specifically the base cards in NFL and NBA. But as we saw in WWE last year, the inserts were a secondary chase to the base cards and the autographs. So great stuff overall. We are expecting a lot of changes to come as it translates NFL to NBA to NFL, or NBA to NFL to UFC to WWE. Sorry. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for collectors to get access to a lot of these cards like they had last year. Again, this was a tremendously popular set, probably one of the best WWE sets ever made. I am so excited to see how it's coming into focus for 2023. And I'm sure we'll get a preview here pretty quickly. I don't think this will be the second set for WWE, so there may be another preview in between, although they could have adjusted the calendar because putting Revolution right after Prizm last year didn't work very well. I'm curious maybe if they go and sort of switch that out. So excited to see how this all plays out. Excited to see the new designs and sort of the photos and some of the retail aspects of it, because again, that's a huge part of why Select was so successful last year. But this is the one set that everybody's looking forward to finally getting our first look. Can't wait to see it. Thanks, everyone.